Tammy Scarlett is with us tonight. And Tammy is one of those people who behind the scenes does all sorts of wonderful things in our great global peace tribe, Unity Earth. She works very closely with Unify. And of course, Unify has been the source where we've gone for so much of our inspiration for so many years, really before all of us were doing Zoom. Unify was out there doing the great work. Um, and so it's wonderful to have you with us, Tammy, a chance to meet you. And you were on way back during the Saturday Night Alive days. But it's great to have you back on a Global Peace Tribe show. And I guess I'd just love to start by asking what all of this means to you, answering the call to humanity's sacred mission and your own personal response to that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Scott. And first, I guess I'll just say, yeah, so I've been executive director of Unify for almost 6 years now, and Unify began the winter solstice of 2012 by putting together a gigantic global broadcast that knit together all of the ceremonies that were happening at sacred sites around the planet. And in so doing, there was this moment where people who were maybe participating from home, or maybe they were at one of those sites, but whatever the case, they did not have the context of how great in number we really are together, and that all of these movements were happening as part of one whole in these moments. And so it gave people a new context that they could relate to, that's already true inside. And I was not yet with Unify when that happened, because like I said, just going on 6 years here for me. But it's been really a great honor to lead this nonprofit organization through its becoming. And part of that becoming has been looking at ways where in moments we just sprung up and sprinted through and maybe didn't take a lot of time to think about what we wanted to plan in our actions. A lot of times it was like rallying up together and popping up a quick event and getting a lot of energy around it, and then dealing with the aftermath later. These are things that a lot of us do in our lives as individuals sometimes, and then come back and through maybe mindfulness practices, think about how we can tune up our approaches. So as an entity, Unify has been growing up over these years. And many of you who know Unify might have noticed that we have not been running out like teenagers lately, cheering for things, but we've been really learning new ways of being through how to support the greater ecosystem of the community. And in my opinion, I think that that's just in time, because I think that Unify as an entity longs to be in service to this evolution of the whole. I think that Unify is one aspect of looking at all of us as the whole. So I am Unify, you are Unify, we all are Unify, the same way that I am the Holomovement, you are the Holomovement, we all are Holomovement. We've come up with names and titles and things to call it, but we are one. And that's the thing that's trying to come through in this iteration of being. So when you ask me, Scott, about the Awakening to Humanity's Sacred Mission Symposium that's happening this week, I think that the timing of that also could not be any better. And I think that, post-pandemic, we find ourselves as humanity, not just in a consciousness space, but truly as all of humanity, on the other side of a shared experience that makes us feel like we can't go backwards. We know that we're co-creating something new, that that's inevitable. So then it becomes more present in our minds that there's perhaps an opportunity, perhaps an option to become more intentional in that co-creation, to think about who we want to be, what we want to knit in our future. For me, what that's been bringing up lately is that when I go into meetings, about new systems, new technology, how we're leveraging AI, all these different things. I work deeply in partnerships for global strategy through Unify and also not through Unify. So in those meetings, I like to ask myself, how can we from right here invite in a higher level of intelligence, our natural intelligence, collective intelligence, exponential intelligence, any kind of intelligence that's for the best and highest good that may not already be operating at its fullest potential? How can we invite that in right now? And in perhaps even the most subtle ways, weave in to the next practical step that we're doing, whether it's a symposium or a meeting or setting up a system or whatever, the values and the ethos that we are saying we long for in our future. So if I am going to say, for instance, that I long for inclusivity, I really want people's voices to be heard. I really want people to know that they're not alone. What is one little way that I can weave that value or that ethos into something practical that I'm doing, and then I wait on it and allow for some intelligences to come through that might show me a way to do that, so that no matter what I'm doing, I can be weaving something new. For me, that's my own personal growing edge at the moment, because I don't have a manual on how to do new earth stuff. I mean, we have lots of all kinds of signs and symbols, but we don't really have the complete thing, and it's different for every single one of us. So for me, that's my current practice of my growing edge, is just saying, well, at least if I know if I've activated myself and I've chosen to be fully present and really released self-judgment, surrendered to flow, and I can invite in higher intelligence and then look for just one little thing I can do different as I co-create, then I can move in a direction that I know is on a trajectory of what we are all saying we're hoping that the future will be. And that's what I think is we're starting to see light up in the symposium.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for the wonderful work that you're doing, Tammy. And it's just really nice to have you on the show. And in case people don't know, I imagine most of our tribe knows about Unify. But if not, it's on Facebook is the best place to start. And just go to Unify. And they carry so many things. Of course, they've been carrying much of the symposium that we've been talking about all night long. And this really is a beautiful place to go. There's so many amazing things that you carry, and also just always great little memos. You guys always have great little memes that people post. I post memes up there sometimes. So Unify is such an incredible and an important hub. And it's exciting to hear what you guys are working on, because you have always been ahead of the curve. And so I look forward to seeing what you come up with and what you guys are going to do next.
Well, thank you, Scott. Yeah, I mean, I would say that I think it's really key for everything on the planet right now, for humanity to be finding new ways to have a masculine and feminine balance in the ways that we alchemize together our relationships, our businesses, our business transactions, our agreements, our meetings, all of these things. There are new ways that are possible. And some of this wisdom that we celebrate with our esteemed Indigenous elders, and that we know is out there from perhaps ancient texts, some of that wisdom cannot come through practically and be able to be living in our society unless we begin to incorporate it in some of these ways. So from Unify, you might experience a little more of these feminine edges about how to be in service, about how to be present, about how to communicate that we are all one. It is not us versus you. It is not Unify and then all these other organizations. It is we are a network of networks, a collective, an ecosystem, and Unify has our role to play. And also I think entities have kind of an essence, to them, a life and a becoming. And so Unify's at this age where where she's discovering herself in a new way. So that's it's a really beautiful thing. So I think and that's true for a lot of us right now. Again, at this stage of evolution for humanity, a lot of our organizations are discovering that it's possible for us to become something new, to have these moments of exponential growth, and just by way of our being together in new ways and leaning into that co-creativity. So.
I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I was in the entertainment industry for the first 40 years of my life. And it's obviously a very competitive field. And I was raised, I was a competitive guy. And one of the great things that really took place that I observed in the pandemic was how all the different organizations that we're seeing represented came together, and there was not competition. Evolutionary Leaders Network, Unify, Unity Earth, Source of Synergy Foundation, Soul Search, Global Peace Tribe, and the way that we all support each other and exchange resources and ideas and financially support each other, it's been really beautiful for me as a guy coming out of a very competitive world to witness this way that we are coming together and supporting each other. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Scott. I think it's really way paving in that sense, because I think it's something that other people are creating, even out in the business sector. These past, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I did a speaker series and was speaking to people in the healthcare industry. And one of the things that they desired to learn the most was how to successfully collaborate with one another. And so being able to utilize these principles that honestly I had seen enacted in this, greater consciousness space, and watching them be successfully applied in the business world was also really exciting. And I think more and more people are really, again, after a shared experience, like extreme isolation, we crave being with one another. We crave something even deeper than that we maybe don't know how to put our finger on, but there's something that happens when we know one another, we lean in with one another, agendas aside, that allows for something to be born. Those golden threads can rise up to the surface. We can identify them quickly. We know where momentum is, and it makes it so much more easy to know. I know when to reach out and call Scott because I know it's in his wheelhouse. I know all these like dimensions, right? And so when we're in these spaces, we get to know that about one another, and it just makes it magical.
Beautiful. Absolutely. And I'm looking in the audience. There's all these wonderful people in the audience. We've got Antoinette in the audience, Kristen Hoffman in the audience. And what's beautiful about that is even when they're not presenters on the show, they still come in and they attend the Unity Earth Symposium or a Unify event or the Awakening World. And I think that's a very beautiful thing as well.
I do too. I do too. The other thing that makes me think of, Scott, with the Awakening to Humanity's Sacred Mission Symposium, is that I really feel at the heart of it that this is about your innate value as a being on this experience being a human on Earth. You being here, every single person on the planet, all 8 billion people on the planet have a real true purpose, and that can be activated, and that is like a puzzle piece to everything else going on around you, and especially even on a greater context, all the way up to the most macro. And I like to say, because people will say to me sometimes, let's go change the world or things like that. And I'll say, well, we already are changing the world. That part's inevitable. We are changing the world constantly, whether we like it or not. But the question is, what do we really want to do with that power? What do we really want to do with that possibility? Because it's a window of time that we have, and it's opportunity. We get the chance to be fully present and fully alive and fully abundant and make that possible for others around us. We get the chance, the opportunity to co-create new realities together. So how can we show up right now and make that a new way, a new thing?
Beautiful. And it's It's said all the time for a reason. We need to be the change we want to see in the world. And that is what's so inspiring for me about collaborating with you and all the wonderful people that are here tonight and that are with us every week, is that it can get very discouraging. I'll step back a step. In one of the breakout rooms in today's symposium, two of the people, instead of talking about what they, are doing in the world, said, "I'm just so glad to be here. I am so discouraged watching what's happening in the Middle East, watching what's happening in Ukraine." And two different people were just sharing the great disillusionment and how hard it has felt. And so to come into this environment and to see person after person after person who's doing something, making a difference, and that we are all co-creating at least peace in our community, at least peace in our world, was so inspiring for those two people. And it was a reminder for me of how blessed we are, because we really don't have much impact over what Putin or the political leaders are going to do, but we have tremendous impact in how we relate to our family, how we relate to our neighborhood, how we relate to our workmates, our immediate sphere of influence. We are impacting every day. And to keep remembering that and bringing love and harmony and resonance and coherence into our relationships. And I think that's a big part of what we're all learning and grasping at this time.
Absolutely, Scott. And I think also maybe letting it soak in, even if we're not going to be able to measure all the time the ways that our actions and our thoughts, right where we are, reverberate out beyond our sphere. But they do reverberate out beyond our sphere. And people will say also to me sometimes, but I don't know how I really make a difference. So I can't see how that's really true. I think I kind of believe it, but I can't really see it. And so I'll say, look, there's 8 people in the world. 8 people. There's 8 people. There's 8 billion people in the world. Let's say that there's a giant 5-gallon bucket filled with water. And let's say you take one little dropper of red dye and you put that in the water. You have a drop of red dye that goes into that bucket. There is no part of the water in that bucket that is the same color as it was before. Even if it is the tiniest fraction different, it is different. It has changed because that one little drop went in that bucket. We don't have to be able to see or understand how this all reverberates and fits together, but the thoughts you think when you are alone, you think you're siloed off from everything else, they are connected. Your permissions that you give yourself are permissions that you are paving the way for other people. That is how it works. It is all connected. So your sphere might be what you're immediately affecting from right where you are in ways that you can measure, but also keep in mind there are ways that we're not required to measure that are also being affected by everything that you are and everything that you do. And that means that you have great, 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 vast, vast, vast potential to combine with other people around the planet at these junctures right now. Imagine what a different world can be 6 months later, 12 months later, when all these people, right where they're at, start thinking differently, feeling differently, making different choices, being differently out in the world, inviting new ways of being so that they can embody new ways for the new earth. And then that begins to change things little by little. And then all of a sudden, we are at any point in time only the culmination of what everybody in humanity is deciding together. That's the algorithm.
Right. That was beautifully stated. That was really beautifully stated. Tammy, I'm not going to let you go another 2 years without being on the show again. More often.
Oh,
I'm
thank you,
really
Scott.
so appreciating everything you've shared. And guess what time it is? It's time for another Omashar song.
Nice. Awesome.
An opportunity for us to digest the wonderful wisdom you've just shared with us. So thank you so much. And hey, everybody, one more time, remember that go to Unify, register. There's all sorts of wonderful ways you can connect. Make sure you mark it. And thank you again, Tammy, for everything that you do. God bless you.
Thank you, Scott. Blessings.